Abdukodir Khusanov has been one of the best players for Man City since he signed. Now, after that big mistake in his debut against Chelsea, he has recovered brilliantly not only in that game but throughout every single game to become a mainstay in this City team. In this video, we're going to talk about exactly what makes him so good and why Man City have just got a generational defender like that. So let's get into it. Now, compared to a lot of people, I was actually very excited about the signing of Abdukodir Khusanov, bigging him up in my video I did before they signed him. Now, of course, it didn't go well. We've already mentioned that Chelsea mistake he made, but I do think other than that, after that first 10 minutes of that game, he really did improve, and even on a yellow, I thought that he showed a lot of maturity at his young age. Now, what is easy to forget is that he has only played around 50 professional games before joining City, only coming to Lyon a few years ago and only really becoming a mainstay this season. It's taken him a long time to get to this level, and it will take him a decent amount of time to adapt to the Prem, but incredibly, it doesn't look like it has taken that long at all. Now, the reason why Man City signed him and why everyone knew they signed him is because they needed pace. They needed a little bit of aggression and needed a little bit of physical prowess. That is what he brings. He covers ground so quickly, he is very alert, and when Man City want to play this transitional based style where they kick the ball long, have a higher line to close the pitch in, it definitely works with Khusanov, who can cover that ground. If players run in behind, he can catch up and hopefully make the right tackles, but also he's a very confident player on the ball as well, which has been very interesting to see. Now, although we all knew he was someone that is going to cover a lot of ground and be that successful, a lot of the talk around him was that he's too aggressive in duels and sometimes will make easy mistakes, such as going too hard on a player and getting a yellow or red when they're down the width when he doesn't need to, and sort of making them rookie mistakes that you get from a young defender where he's just too intent of trying to prove people that he can win the ball back. Now, what we've actually seen by Khusanov is nothing like that. He is actually very aggressive when he needs to be, like I said, especially when people run in behind and he comes across for Ruben Diaz a lot, which has been a major thing, but he isn't overly aggressive when he doesn't need to be. Yes, he is going to pick up the odd yellow card here and there. That is just the sort of idea of a footballer in the Premier League nowadays, but when players go one-on-one with him, he isn't snatching at chances anymore. Maybe he learned at that Chelsea thing where he kind of tried to head that ball too early and end up bouncing and it kind of came off him and went for a goal, but he is being so much more patient in the tackle and waiting for players to sort of make their first move where he can then come in and sweep up. He also isn't going on the floor as much as I thought he would. Something we spoke about before is that he loves doing a slide tackle, and he definitely loves doing a slide tackle still, there's no doubt about that, but he isn't doing it all the time. He stays on his feet quite a lot, he's composed, he sees people onto their weaker foot, and then he comes across because he can cover ground so quickly that it's just so hard to really get past him in them 1v1 scenarios. And one of the things with players like this is that you want to make sure their timings and their contact is correct, because if not, this is where real problems occur. You might be really aggressive and might be able to cover ground well, but you need to make sure you know the distances and you can get there as the player on the attacking team gets there as well. Now, we saw this a few times, but against Liverpool and Tottenham, I think they're the best examples of it. He is really becoming to understand when he should stand and where the timings are that he needs to get to. When Tottenham played that ball down that left-hand side, there was some times that he was in that centre and he was able to come across and get there and put a slide or a foot in before the Tottenham player gets actually any contact on the ball and can really do anything with it. This is very important because it isolates teams into certain areas. You know, you can get players covering for him when he comes out of position to make these tackles, but if he can cover this ground quick enough, it actually means that he is stopping the attack there rather than being that person that is getting bypassed. And these timings are also, like we mentioned, very important when you're coming over to help your teammate. That one against Liverpool where Szoboszlai is literally one-on-one after there's a mistake by Ruben Diaz, and he comes across and helps his defender incredibly using that pace, even though it's late on the game was basically over, and Ruben Diaz doesn't really make that tackle in there, and Khusanov comes in as a brilliant block sliding through. That is that sort of impact you want from someone who's got the amount of pace, amount of physicality that Khusanov does have. That's exactly why Man City bought him, which has been an incredible development from him completely. And it doesn't really surprise me, but when you look at some of his defensive stats, they are improving so much every week. You look at the defensive impact he has had in the last couple of games, which is incredible, but I'm looking at his interceptions. He makes nearly 2 per game and he's at the top 3% of defenders in Europe, which has increased so much recently by the fact he is making 3 or 4 great interceptions a game where he's coming in at any moment. And I think definitely on the wide stretches it's very important he makes them tackles, and it's been much easier for City to not give up as many crosses as before. A lot of the attacking nature against them has come from central areas, and I think he's really held himself well in that defensive regard, so it's definitely an improvement there. Now, what was really surprising is that when he first joined Man City, we didn't know how he was necessarily going to be on the ball. He's not someone that had the ball too much at Lyon. They didn't really play that system with him. It was more Danso next to him that would be that person that would pass the ball out, and they didn't have the most possession ever. They had a decent amount, but not as much as Man City, so we didn't know if he was going to be able to make them passes. Now, what I've been pleasantly pleased about is that passing level. Not only is he using his pace where players come to press him, he's very confident on the ball, which didn't look like that. The style looked very nervous. He is able to take players on and go around them and then pass the ball inside. Now, one of the things I love about him is that not only is he consistently passing it to that right hand player that's in front of him, the right mid, right back, whatever that position you want to call is now, to give them plays, and usually they can do a quick pass if it's Savinho to go through. But what I like about him is he also switches that up a lot of the time by doing inside passes. He can squeeze balls through that inside line where people are being pressed brilliantly. His ability to pass under pressure and in tight areas is going to be key where Man City get a lot more players that are better on the half turn, have that pace and that physicality to get past them. And like we mentioned with the Echeverrier video, as soon as he comes into the team, I think these passes by Khusanov are going to be very key from deep to carry the ball through. And it's not only from defensive areas he has done this. When Man City will get more pressure on the ball and are more dominant on the ball against certain teams, he has proven that he can pass the ball into the final third a lot. When Man City are given these opportunities to him, he will find passes in through the centre to teammates, which are very impressive, and he's made a lot, especially against that Liverpool game. He was incredible at it, but he's also very good at passing it down the wide stretches with long passing. Now, this is something we didn't know anything about really. He'd barely made any long passes in his entire career at Lyon, and he's come in and he's so free. If you give him that space in defence, he will pass it and switch the ball completely to the left hand, right hand side. So if you press him tightly, he can always find the ball in the middle or on the side under pressure, but he can also pass it over the defence completely on that left hand side with given space, which makes him incredible. And a lot of the time when he is in defensive areas, his passing completion is very good. A lot of the passes aren't going to be long, but I do like when he chooses not to do them and when he does. But a lot of the time he doesn't just pass them back to the goalkeeper. He's very forward thinking, which is something you don't really see from young, inexperienced defenders, especially at this sort of level. And he wants to get an attack. And I think when Man City get more pressure on the ball and when they can get that defence higher up on the line, then he will become even more effective. And it's quite clear over the last few games that Khusanov has been the most important player for City on the ball. I think the recoveries he does is incredible because they're allowed to play such a high line with him being able to run in behind, especially run if wingers are going to get in behind, more importantly. But the stories about him coming to England are great. He can't speak much English, he's a very quiet person, and he turned up with nothing, not even a wash bag. So it's incredible to see the journey he has been on already and will be a key player for Man City. I think there was some criticism of Pep playing him so early, but he said that he wants him to get experience and wants him to do that, and it's paying dividends. I think he's been Man City's best defender in the last month quite easily and will continue to be so in the future. And also the fact he's jumped in and come back from that mistake he made against Chelsea has been a really great thing to see, and I really give him a lot of credit as well as the team of developing him, and I think he will just continue to get better when he gets more familiar with the country. But he's a proper defender, and I think that's what City needed for the first time in a long time. Now let me know in the comments what you think about Khusanov, and thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.